They married to survive. They stayed because they fell in love. Alex never imagined his life turning out this way. Just a year earlier, he was married, healthy, and making plans for the future. He and his wife talked about traveling, about moving to a better place, about someday. Everything felt normal, stable, safe. And then one afternoon, sitting in a cold white doctor's office, his entire life cracked in half. The doctor didn't hesitate, didn't soften the words. Cancer. Alex remembers how the word didn't feel real at first. It floated in the air like a foreign language. Cancer happened to other people. People on TV, people in sad stories. Not him. But within weeks, reality hit hard. Hospital visits, tests, scans, long nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how much time he had left. What hurt almost as much as the diagnosis was what happened next. His wife couldn't handle it. At first, she tried. She went to a few appointments. She said the right words. But slowly, she pulled away. She stopped staying the night at the hospital. She stopped asking questions. And one evening, she sat across from him and said the sentence that would stay with him forever. "I can't do this." She said she wasn't strong enough, that the fear was too much, that watching him suffer was destroying her. And then she left. Just like that. Alex didn't even argue. He didn't beg. He didn't cry in front of her. He just nodded. Because somehow, losing her hurt more than the cancer. The months that followed were the darkest of his life. Chemotherapy drained his energy. His body felt unfamiliar. He felt weak, dependent, exposed. Friends visited less often. Conversations became awkward. People didn't know what to say. Except for one person. Jason. Jason had been Alex's friend for years. Not the dramatic type, not overly emotional, just steady, reliable. The kind of person who showed up without asking and stayed without complaining. Jason came to appointments, sat quietly in waiting rooms, brought food Alex couldn't even taste anymore, helped him stand when his legs felt like they'd give out. One night, after a long day at the hospital, Jason said something that completely changed everything. "You know my insurance is really good, right?" Alex laughed weakly. "Congratulations." Jason hesitated, then said, "I'm serious. It covers pretty much everything. Experimental treatments, specialists, stuff you're not getting right now." Alex looked at him. "So?" Jason took a breath. "We could get married." The room went silent. Alex stared at him, convinced he'd misheard. "What?" "I mean it," Jason said calmly. "Legally. On paper. You'd be covered. You'd get better care." Alex shook his head. "That's insane." Jason shrugged. "Maybe. But it would help you live." Alex didn't answer right away. His mind was racing. The idea felt absurd, embarrassing, desperate. "You don't even like me like that," Alex said. Jason smiled slightly. "I like you enough to want you alive." They didn't decide that night, but the idea didn't go away. Over the next few weeks, Alex kept thinking about it, about how unfair it was that survival depended on paperwork, on systems, on money. Eventually, he said yes. They got married quietly. No ceremony, no celebration. Just signatures and witnesses who didn't ask questions. At first, it felt wrong. They lived together because it made things easier. Shared space, shared routines, shared silence. But slowly, something shifted. Jason learned Alex's moods, knew when to talk and when to sit quietly, knew when Alex was scared even when he pretended he wasn't. Alex noticed the small things. Jason waking up at night to check if he was breathing. Jason pretending not to notice when Alex cried in the bathroom. Jason holding his hand during treatments, even when Alex felt ashamed of needing it. They laughed, too. Dark humor, stupid jokes, stories from the past. They talked about childhood, about fears, about regrets. Alex realized something terrifying. For the first time since his diagnosis, he wasn't alone. Months passed. Treatment was brutal, but effective. One day, the doctor walked in with a smile. "You're in remission." Alex didn't speak. Jason didn't either. They just sat there, hands locked, breathing. He survived. And suddenly, the question they'd been avoiding came rushing back. What now? They didn't need the marriage anymore. No one said it out loud at first, but both of them felt it hanging in the air. One night, Jason finally broke the silence. "So, we can get divorced if you want." Alex looked at him. "Do you want to?" Alex asked. Jason paused. "No." Neither did Alex. They laughed. Nervous. Honest. What started as survival had become something else. Something real. Something deep. They stayed married, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Today, they're one of the strongest couples we know. Not perfect. Not dramatic. Just real. Their love wasn't built on romance or fantasy. It was built on fear, on vulnerability, on choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. They married to survive. They stayed because they fell in love.
The second story that I want to talk about is going to be called Sheltered by Fate, because I think it suits that the most. So, Lena had always been fiercely independent. She moved to a new city for work at 25, leaving behind family, friends, and familiarity. She liked it that way. No one telling her what to do, no obligations, just her and her dreams. Then came the storm, literally. A massive flood hit her neighborhood, destroying homes, displacing families, and taking the lives of people she barely knew but had grown fond of over time. Lena lost her apartment, her belongings, and her sense of safety overnight. For weeks, she slept in shelters, surviving on donated food and the kindness of strangers. She was exhausted, frustrated, and terrified. But in one of the community centers, she met Tom. Tom was a volunteer, calm and reassuring, with a quiet energy that made people feel safe. He didn't lecture. He didn't overpromise. He just helped. He carried supplies, fixed broken walls, and sometimes just sat with people who were crying. When Lena met him, she was angry, impatient, and suspicious of everyone. But Tom was persistent, not intrusive, just present. Weeks passed. The shelter became home. Lena and Tom began talking. First, small conversations about meals, chores, the weather. Then, slowly, deeper things, fears, regrets, lost dreams. Lena found herself laughing again, even when the city around them was still broken. One evening, as rain fell again, and the shelter was filled with the hum of exhausted volunteers, Lena admitted to Tom, almost whispering, I don't think I can do this alone." Tom didn't hesitate. "You don't have to." They became a team. Tom's calm steadiness balanced Lena's restless energy. Together, they navigated the bureaucracy of aid, rebuilding, and reclaiming her life. What began as mutual necessity, Tom needing volunteers, Lena needing shelter, slowly transformed into something neither expected. Months later, when the city was mostly rebuilt, Lena had an apartment again, but she didn't want to leave the shelter entirely. Not because she couldn't move on, but because Tom was there. And she realized, in a quiet, terrifying way, that she loved him. Tom felt the same. He had never thought he'd fall in love in a flood shelter amidst broken walls and lost possessions. But there they were, two people scarred by circumstance, choosing to stay together, not because it was easy, but because it was right. Their love wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, steady, built on survival and trust and the knowledge that someone would never abandon you, even when the world was falling apart. They stayed together. And for Lena, for the first time in her life, she felt truly safe.
Heard story, second chances. Marcus was a high school teacher, dedicated, patient, loved by his students. He had a quiet life that suited him, but he carried a guilt he couldn't shake. 10 years ago, he had left someone he loved because life was too complicated. That memory haunted him every day. Then one night, a fire broke out in his apartment building. Marcus barely escaped, coughing and terrified, his life and belongings gone. Amid the chaos, help came unexpectedly from Rachel, a former colleague he hadn't spoken to in years. She had a life of her own now, but she dropped everything to help him. At first, Marcus was hesitant. He had convinced himself he could handle life alone. But Rachel stayed. She brought him to her apartment, helped him recover from smoke inhalation, and guided him through the paperwork, the insurance, and the chaos that followed the fire. "I can't believe you came all this way," Marcus said one morning, coughing lightly. "I had to," Rachel replied. "Some things, some people, you don't just leave behind." Days turned into weeks. Marcus began to open up, first about fears and frustrations, then regrets he had carried for a decade. Rachel listened patiently, without judgment. Sometimes she said nothing, just held space while he spoke. Other times, she reassured him quietly, "You're not alone. Not anymore." What started as a rescue became something deeper. They laughed over minor mishaps, argued over small disagreements, and shared late-night talks about dreams, regrets, and fears. Marcus noticed the little things, her calm presence, her steady patience, the way she remembered small details about him. Slowly, quietly, he realized he loved her. It wasn't a sudden passion, just a steady, profound feeling born from trust, care, and the knowledge that someone would stay when it mattered most. Months later, Marcus returned to his rebuilt apartment. It felt empty, but Rachel was there. Not as a savior, not as a friend, but as someone who had chosen to stay. "I love you," Marcus admitted one evening, unsure, hesitant. "I was waiting for you to say that," Rachel whispered. "I love you too." They didn't rush. There were no grand gestures, just presence, choice, and care. They stayed together because they wanted to, not because of circumstance. Their love was quiet but unshakable, built on survival, forgiveness, patience, and trust. Marcus never stopped thinking about the decade of regret, but now it felt lighter, softer. It had led him here, to Rachel, to a second chance at love, at partnership, at life fully shared. They proved that sometimes life's disasters can lead to the deepest connections, that love can survive the worst, and in surviving, become unbreakable. The fourth story is about Sophia. Sophia was a single mother. Her daughter, Mia, was 5, and Sophia worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Life was exhausting, lonely, and often frightening. She had no family nearby, and friends were scarce. Every day felt like survival, waking up before dawn, rushing to get Mia ready for school, juggling work, bills, groceries, and the tiny cracks in life that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Sophia prided herself on being strong, on keeping everything together. She rarely asked for help, believing it would only slow her down. But life, she was learning, had a way of humbling even the strongest people. One winter evening, everything changed. Sophia had been driving home after a long shift when a car lost control on the icy road. She swerved to avoid it, but the car skidded into a ditch. She remembered screaming, airbags, cold metal, and then, nothing. When she woke, she was in the hospital, bruised and bandaged. Her head ached, her arms were sore, and her ankle was twisted. Worst of all, Mia was at home, alone, waiting for her mother who couldn't get up, cook, or even open a door. Panic set in. How could she manage? How could she keep her daughter safe, fed, and comforted? Sophia's mind raced as she stared at the hospital ceiling. "I can't do this," she whispered, tears welling. She had never felt so helpless, so vulnerable. Her pride, her independence, everything she had built to survive, seemed useless in the face of this sudden weakness. And then came Daniel. He was a neighbor she barely knew, quiet, reserved, but with a calm presence that seemed to radiate assurance. Daniel had heard about the accident through a friend in the building. Without hesitation, he knocked on her hospital door the next day. "I can take care of Mia," he said simply. His voice was steady, unflinching. "I know it's a lot to ask, but I can do it." Sophia blinked at him. Hesitation, doubt, fear, they all fought inside her. She didn't know him. She barely spoke to him before. How could she trust him with her daughter, her life, her home? But the situation left her no choice. With a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." Over the following weeks, Daniel became a fixture in their lives. He cooked meals Mia liked, made sure her homework was done, comforted her during nightmares, and even handled Sophia's errands. He never complained, never demanded anything in return. When Sophia returned home from the hospital, exhausted and still shaky, the apartment was clean, Mia was happy, and Daniel was quietly tidying up, as if he had always been there. Sophia was overwhelmed. Not just with gratitude, but with admiration. This stranger, this quiet man who had done so much without expectation, had become indispensable. She found herself noticing details she hadn't before, the gentle way he spoke to Mia, the way he remembered her routines, how he stayed patient even when things went wrong. At first, Sophia dismissed the feeling stirring in her chest. There was nothing romantic. She felt guilty for thinking about it at all. But little by little, those small gestures, the bedtime story he read just right, the way he stayed up when she had late shifts, the soft reassurance when she panicked, began to change something in her. Months passed. Sophia's body healed. Her life began to return to normal. Work became manageable again. Mia was healthy, happy, and thriving. But something had shifted. The apartment felt different. The nights weren't as quiet, and Sophia realized, with a mix of fear and awe, that she had fallen in love, not with romance, not with fantasy, but with someone who had shown unwavering care when she had no one else. Daniel's presence had become a constant. He didn't pressure her, didn't rush feelings, but the depth of his dedication and patience was unmistakable. He would sit with her on evenings when she worried, listen when she spoke of fears or past regrets, and sometimes just offer a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I don't want things to go back to the way they were before," he said softly. "I mean, I like being here. With both of you. I don't want to just leave." Sophia's heart skipped. She swallowed the lump in her throat. "I feel the same," she admitted, voice trembling slightly. "I didn't expect. I didn't think I could feel this way." Daniel smiled. "It's not sudden fireworks. It's trust. Care. Choosing each other when it matters most." That night, Sophia thought about all the months of fear, pain, and struggle. She thought about her pride, her independence, and how much she had believed she could manage alone. And she realized she didn't want to. She didn't want to be alone anymore. Not when someone like Daniel had proven that love could exist in quiet, steadfast ways. Their connection grew deeper. Not dramatic, not flashy. But rooted in the survival, patience, and compassion they had shared. They laughed together over small mishaps, leaned on each other in stress, and found a rhythm in daily life that felt comforting, safe, and real. Mia adored Daniel, not just as a neighbor, but as family. In time, Sophia and Daniel became inseparable. They weren't perfect. They argued sometimes, disagreed, and had fears. But they chose each other every day. Their love wasn't built on fantasy, it was built on reality. On presence, reliability, and the knowledge that someone would never abandon you when you needed them most. Sophia often thought about that first night, when she had no choice but to trust a stranger. Now, she couldn't imagine life without him. Daniel hadn't just helped her survive, he had taught her that love could be quiet, steadfast, and life-changing. They became a family, not perfect, not dramatic, but real. And they stayed together, because for the first time in her life, Sophia knew she wasn't alone.